Hey all, Toves here, back with another house flipper video. So today's going to be something a bit different from usual. If you're someone that watches me fairly regularly, you'll have seen that I have been building things in House Flipper for a little while. Various different buildings like the one you're seeing on the screen. And I have had a bunch of different comments from a few people that the speed builds are a little bit fast and that they are really keen to understand the method that I'm using. So that's what this video is going to be. It's going to be fairly short, basically just tips and tricks on what I've learned over the period of time that I've been doing this. And if you're someone that keeps up to date with the changes that House Flipper has had, and it's interesting to see that developers are definitely making a few noises and a few changes recently. And I'm pretty sure they're waiting to see how the community responds and to see if more people start doing these sort of big build projects. Anyways, so there's not loads, and this is a fairly short video, so let's crack on and get looking at them. Okay, so first things first, what we're talking about here is stacking. Mostly what you're going to be doing is building walls and ceilings and floors by stacking up bricks. And there are only a very small selection of pieces you can use to do this, and they are all part of the Garden Flipper DLC. So if you don't have that Garden Flipper DLC, you won't be able to do this, unfortunately. But the pieces we're talking about specifically are either in the surfaces, sports surfaces, so that's these pieces, or in the architecture garden stairs piece. And I would recommend sticking to only these pieces. And the reason why I say that is because some of them will not stack quite in the same way. So if you look here, so what I'm doing is just placing another one on top, and this particular piece will get to the fourth one and no longer allow me to place it on top in exactly the same position. Now I think this is this whole thing is this whole mechanic of stacking things up. The devs have admitted was a bit of an error. It was just a sort of a lucky coincidence, but for some reason these particular ones will force you to offset it. If I offset it by 1, and this can be a bit fiddly, sometimes you have to rotate. Yeah, so if I offset it by 1, I can go back to the original alignment, but every 4 times I'll have to keep doing that little rotation. However, and again this is definitely an indication that this was just an error, there is an inconsistency with this. So as you can see, that will just let me continue placing down indefinitely. So I could build a whole wall out of this, but this actually takes, for per click you're not getting very high. So if you imagine you're trying to build this whole big structure here, per click you're not getting very high, and it's also quite wide. So what I found was the best piece to use was the garden stair, and this single garden stair piece is by far the best piece to use, because as you can see, if I just get that in alignment, for 1 click I've basically got the same amount as almost 3 or 4 clicks there. And obviously you can imagine, if you're only building something small it doesn't really massively matter, but if you're building something that big or anything bigger than that, which is what I'm building at the moment, then economizing the number of times you have to click your mouse makes quite a big difference. So all we're doing, and again this will let me continue to stack indefinitely, and I actually haven't built as far up as I can, but I think you can build right up to the skybox using that method. So number 2, once we start to get to the actual kind of building a wall structure, there's a really critical bit here that makes a big difference. So I always make sure that I stick to the same orientation of the brick, so I'm not rotating that. The game is now doing that for me by itself. It didn't actually do that when I built this structure, but that's a change that they've made recently. And the key to making sure that even on a corner, keep the bricks in the same orientation is that if we just take that out, so let's just say I'm gonna go round this bend. Obviously it takes up more space, but if I was saying, so in theory, let's say we have a wall here, and then we want to turn the corner, but this time we're going to turn the corner with a narrower piece. Let's just do it here. you'll find that sometimes it doesn't line up perfectly. Let's just see if we can do that again over here, because for some reason it did it that time it did it okay. It'll be very specifically. Yeah, that's weird. So in a number of times I've done this, and there are inconsistencies. Oh, I tell you what I'm doing wrong. Yeah, it's actually that, isn't it? So if you wanted to turn, so that is still in the same orientation, so that is fine. But if you turned it like that, you'll notice it won't actually let it clip right up against it, or sit right up against it. So you end up with this gap, and obviously over the course of a huge wall, you're ending up with an alignment issue, and that'll cause you problems all the way through. Tip number 3, and this is something again been added super recently, but massively helpful. So this is effectively, this is a mechanic that you used to find in Minecraft. And again, when I built this, I had to build. This is why I've got these weird, like, bodgy stairs on the side, so I could get access to different bits of it. But now, because of the change they've made recently, where the orientation of the brick stays, you can do this. There is a point where it will throw you off. Say it threw me off, but for most of the time, that will be enough to get you up to the next layer. Okay, so once you've placed your walls down and you've got to a place where you're happy with the first floor of the structure, and usually if you use stuff like doors, so if a door is a good guide of how high, so I'd say this actually is a bit low here, but it's all right for demonstration purposes. It's a good guide. A door is a good guide of how high you need to go with your walls before you should start considering floors and roofs and things. So in terms of floors and roofs, this is the biggest challenge of the whole thing. So if you're making just a single story block, or you're just making like a wall, it's super easy. But in order to achieve what I've got here, which is the second, this is effectively my floor of my second floor, or the floorboards of my second floor, I have to build up walls all in this space. So if you see if I just take this on away, you'll see the reason why that is. So all I've done here is I've built up my walls. The sport surfaces, let's just put that there for a second. The sport surfaces will allow you this little overlap, and that's one of the reasons why the sport surface is better than anything else that you can use. And this piece will allow you to overhang over a brick quite a lot. So you can see I can overhang it this far. But once I get to that point, once I'm that far away from the wall, if I just take that out for a second, it won't let me place it back in there. It will only let you place it back if there's something beneath it. So the long and the short of that is that, and this is definitely the hardest thing and the most time consuming thing, is in order to get an expansive ceiling like that, then I need to have, and these actually are not critical to have them aligned, because it just needs to have a block underneath. In order to get that piece in, that floor piece back, or there in the first place, I need to have something like that there. Is that quite enough? No, not even that is enough, so I'd actually need to build this second one up. So what I tend to do, and again you'll have seen this if you've seen any of the videos, I build a solid block of walls and then I remove them. That's the most efficient way of doing it that I've found. The alternative is, and you'll have seen this if you saw the pool video, which I'll link up in the top, is to do something like this. So because you can overhang the ceilings, or those sports surfaces, you can do a staggered ceiling, and you'd obviously need to create like a gable wall here to block this off, but effectively you're just saying I'm just overhanging a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further, and then finding the middle point. The next one is, again, this is a bit of just a tip for making things slightly easier on yourself. So if you notice, I tend to use a colour. So basically the reason why I've built everything in white so far is in order to identify and keep a consistency. Really, because I don't mind this kind of it's like travertine sort of colour. But what I do is, as I just said, because I'm removing a lot of bricks, and a lot of bricks inside are going to be redundant, then when I'm I effectively use a color coding. So in order to identify the point at which I know I need to stop removing bricks. If you imagine you're in a huge great big block like that, then as you're deleting your way through, you won't be able to tell the difference between what is the outer wall and what was a block to delete. So I use this color coding and I change it, effectively just say anything that I'm deleting is in a different color to my outer walls. So last one, and this is really kind of critical to bring it all together, because obviously by like the texture of these walls, there's nothing you can do to paint them. I really wish they would give us a way of painting these walls. That would be amazing. Devs, if you're watching, please. But the key to making it kind of come together is the detail. And obviously you're limited in the detail that you can add because you can't paint the walls, because you can't decorate. It's actually really important to find ways of, you know, adding realistic detail. So stuff like, you know, obviously you can't add windows because we can't add windows in the game anyway, but even if you could, these are not walls in the same sense that the game thinks they are, so you need to find another way. So doing stuff like adding these glass sliding doors as windows, and even doing stuff like back here, I used the shutters. I think these are the blind pieces, sorry, to add. So again, that looks convincing enough as a window. And then the last thing, very last thing, and I'm currently doing this on the pool house. So this is actually, sorry, not the pool house, the spa. Is again a little bit of a glitch, but because in a freestanding building like that, completely independent of any existing building, you can't do anything like plumbing. So what I did is I have used, and you can't, obviously as I said, you can't tile, you can't do anything like that because none of that will work for the game. But if you use the outside wall of an existing structure, so now I can, you know, effectively, if I build a wall around this, if I build another structure like that around this building, then I can do all the things that I can do with a normal building. You know, I can even plumb in, I can plumb in a bathroom here if I want to. So here we go, putting in a shower. So that effectively acts in exactly the same way that an internal wall does. So really that's just, it's just helping you to add some extra detail. And I've done things like put up pictures and stuff like that. But you could, in theory, if you used a bigger plot or a bigger building plot, you could have quite a lot of your building using the internal or the exterior walls as interior walls of your building. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you found some of that useful. I am really keen to see if people start to build more of these sort of self-built things, because I think the developers are actually waiting to see if we do more of this stuff in the community. They've made a few little changes recently, and I think they're keen to see if the community really starts doing this and there's an appetite for it, that they may well make some more changes. So if you do find any of this useful, please do drop a like or a comment, or if you've built any of your own stuff on your own channel, then I'd love to see that. Link it below, or tweet at me or something. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. My name's Toves, and I shall see you on the next one. Take it easy.